They've been taking notes, haven't they? Every move you made, every boundary you set, every time you chose yourself over their chaos. Somewhere in the depths of their consciousness, in the part they hide even from themselves, there's a file marked with your name, and stamped across it in letters they can't ignore. One simple truth, impossible to break. You know what's fascinating? They came at you with everything. Every guilt trip perfected over years, every carefully crafted apology meant to drag you back, every calculated silence designed to make you crumble. They mapped out your vulnerabilities, memorized your triggers, predicted your responses, and yet here you are, standing tall, unbothered, and the worst part for them, completely out of their reach. Let me paint you a picture of what happens behind closed doors. When they move on to someone new, when they try to apply those same tactics somewhere else, there's a moment of preparation, a briefing, if you will. They pull out everything they learned from you, every failed attempt, every strategy that backfired, and buried in those notes, hidden between their analysis and predictions, there's a warning that makes even the most skilled manipulator hesitate. It reads something like this: Target has evolved beyond conventional control methods. Emotional blackmail proves ineffective. Guilt inducement yields no results. Traditional fear tactics completely obsolete. Proceed with maximum caution, or preferably, don't proceed at all. That's your legacy. You're not just another chapter in their playbook. You're the reason they had to burn half that playbook and start over. You shattered their framework by simply refusing to participate. They had you all figured out, didn't they? They knew exactly which buttons to push, which wounds to prod, which fears to exploit. They expected breakdowns. You gave them boundaries. They anticipated desperation. You offered distance. They waited for you to come crawling back, and instead you disappeared so gracefully it looked effortless. You didn't just endure their games. You decoded them, analyzed them, then rewrote the entire rulebook. Now they're lost, confused, scrambling to understand how someone they once puppeteered became someone they can't even read anymore. That confusion, that's where your strength lives. Because confusion breeds fear. Fear breeds caution. And caution from people who once treated you carelessly tastes like the sweetest form of vindication you never even needed. Here's something they won't tell you in those healing workshops or therapy circles. Resilience isn't just surviving the storm. It's transforming so completely in the aftermath that the people who caused the damage don't even recognize what emerged. They still remember the old version, the one who over-explained, who apologized for existing, who made themselves small to make others comfortable, who stayed far past the expiration date. But that person, gone, wiped clean, erased from existence. What took its place is something they have no blueprint for, no counter-strategy against, no prepared defense. You became the anomaly in their system, the equation they couldn't solve, the ending they never predicted. And now they're watching from the sidelines, muttering to each other in disbelief. How did this happen? When did they shift? What made them become this? Let's examine that word they use when they can't quite capture what you've become: threatening. Not because you're aggressive, not because you're vindictive, but because you're liberated. Free from their narratives, free from their judgments, free from the exhausting need to be understood by people who were never equipped to understand you anyway. You want to know what truly threatens a manipulator? Someone who's mastered self-validation, who's constructed their own empire from the ruins of every relationship that imploded, who views solitude not as exile, but as sanctuary. They needed you needy, desperate, eternally seeking their stamp of approval like a starving soul. Instead, you discovered how to nourish yourself. And now you're so fulfilled, you can barely recall what emptiness felt like. They held power over you because they possessed something you craved: acceptance, affirmation, love, connection. But then the shift happened. You stopped craving anything they had to offer. Not their validation, not their company, not even their acknowledgement of the harm they caused. You simply evolved beyond it. And that moment, that was their defeat. Because you can't manipulate someone who wants nothing from you. You can't control someone who's already emotionally departed, even if they're physically present in the same space. You became a phantom in their reality, there but untouchable, visible but unreachable. And every attempt they make to pull you back into their theater is met with the same response: absolute nothing. No reaction, no emotion, no investment. Just a calm, arctic, devastating nothing that shows them they're shouting into an abyss. Now here's the part that truly unsettles them. You're not just resistant to their methods anymore. You've absorbed them, not maliciously, not vindictively, but with pure tactical genius. You learned their dialect, their rhythms, their techniques, and now you speak it like a native. When they gaslight, you don't debate. You smile and watch them entangle themselves. When they guilt trip, you acknowledge without accepting, like politely refusing food you're allergic to. When they weaponize silence, you mirror it with a silence so profound, theirs becomes meaningless noise. You're not engaging on their terms anymore. You're not engaging at all. You're operating on an entirely different wavelength, and they can't find the frequency no matter how desperately they search. Here's where it gets fascinating. They began noticing patterns they couldn't decipher. Every time they sensed an opening, every time they identified what they thought was a weakness worth exploiting, it turned out to be quicksand. Not because you designed it that way, but because they fundamentally miscalculated you. They mistook your kindness for fragility, pushed hard, and hit steel. They confused your silence with surrender, provoked you, and found glacier ice. They interpreted your distance as loneliness, reached out, and discovered an impenetrable fortress with permanently sealed gates. Every manipulation attempt became another data point in your mental archive, another case study proving their predictability, another confirmation that you're miles ahead of people still playing checkers while you're navigating dimensions they can't perceive. The most amusing part, they think it's luck. They believe you accidentally stumbled into this strength, this clarity, this unshakable core. They have no concept of the nights you spent reconstructing yourself atom by atom, the invisible wars you fought in solitude, the versions of yourself you had to let die just to keep breathing. They don't witness the work because you don't advertise it. You don't need spectators for your metamorphosis, witnesses for your revolution. You transformed in darkness, in silence, in the gaps between their attention, and when they finally noticed, it was already complete. You weren't becoming unstoppable. You already were. They just finally saw it. They desperately want your secret. They probe with subtle questions, fishing for intel they can weaponize or duplicate. How did you become so self-assured, they wonder, hoping for a recipe they can replicate? But there is no recipe. There's only fire. Only the willingness to incinerate everything counterfeit until only authenticity remains. Only the bravery to confront yourself without filters, without justifications, without the comforting delusions you once needed to survive each day. You didn't discover confidence in literature or seminars or inspirational talks. You excavated it from the wreckage of your former life, buried beneath the debris of who you used to be, waiting for you to dig deep enough to claim it. And now, they're revising entire sections of their manual specifically because of you. They're inserting warnings they never required before. Subject no longer susceptible to emotional manipulation. Subject has established impenetrable boundaries that cannot be violated through guilt or obligation. Subject demonstrates complete emotional independence and requires zero external validation. These aren't just observations. These are surrenders. These are defeat disguised as clinical assessment. Because when they label you unstoppable, what they're actually writing is, "We deployed everything and achieved nothing." That's legendary territory. That's the kind of reputation that walks into rooms before you do, that fundamentally changes how people engage with you, that makes manipulators reconsider before even attempting contact. Let's confront the unspoken question. Some of you wonder if this makes you frozen, if this transformation sacrificed your humanity, if becoming unstoppable means becoming unfeeling. Here's the liberation in this truth. You're not frozen, you're discerning. You're not heartless, you're fortified. You're not cruel, you're crystalline in your clarity. There's an ocean of difference between constructing walls to block everyone and building gates to filter the wrong ones. You didn't seal yourself off from connection. You sealed yourself off from toxicity. You didn't become immune to love. You became immune to manipulation masquerading as love. And anyone who can't distinguish the difference was never supposed to occupy space in your life anyway. They'll attempt to shame you for your power. They'll claim you've transformed, that you're unrecognizable, that you've become harsh or remote or icy. Let them talk, because what they're actually expressing is, you're no longer simple to control, and that disturbs me. Their discomfort with your evolution is not your burden. Their inability to adjust to who you've become is not your concern. You owe nobody access to a version of yourself you've transcended, especially not those who profited from that version's vulnerabilities. You evolved, and evolution always leaves casualties. In your case, it left behind the people who preferred you diminished. Here's what unfolds next, and this is where it becomes truly magnificent. You stop seeking validation in their perception because you discovered something superior, clarity in your own vision. You stop waiting for apologies because you've realized forgiveness is something you grant yourself, not something you need from them. You stop trying to make them comprehend because you've finally accepted that some people are constitutionally incapable of understanding anything that doesn't serve their storyline. And in that acceptance, in that release, you discover a peace so deep it feels almost transcendent. You're not battling anymore, not proving anymore, just existing in your authority. And that existence is so solid, so rooted, so irrefutable, it requires no proclamation, no justification, no defense. The psychological warfare manual required rewriting because you demolished the original. You didn't follow predicted trajectories, didn't respond according to established frameworks, didn't fracture where you were supposed to fracture or compromise where you were supposed to yield. Instead, you forged new trajectories they couldn't anticipate, new responses they couldn't classify, new strengths they couldn't accommodate. You became a case study in human resilience that defies their tidy theories about trauma and recovery and the prescribed timeline of healing. You healed on your schedule, in your way, through your method. And the outcome is something they can't reproduce, can't package, can't systematize. You're not just unstoppable, you're incomparable. Now they study you differently, not with disdain, but with something approaching reluctant admiration, possibly even apprehension. They observe how you navigate existence without their approval, how you make choices without their counsel, how you flourish without their presence, and each observation adds another annotation to your chapter in their manual. Subject operates independently of social reinforcement. Subject exhibits extraordinary resistance to rejection and exclusion. Subject has transformed all former vulnerabilities into strategic assets. Translation: you mastered the game so thoroughly, you transcended it entirely. You elevated beyond their operational level. You're not competing with them anymore, not even occupying the same arena. You're somewhere else entirely, somewhere they cannot follow, regardless of their efforts. Let me describe the moment they finally comprehended their loss. It wasn't theatrical, no confrontation, no ultimate showdown, no final exchange where you articulated exactly what you thought. It was subtler than that, more understated. It was the moment they reached out expecting the familiar response and received something entirely foreign. Perhaps it was your tone, composed where it used to be anxious. Perhaps it was your conciseness, brief where it used to be explanatory. Perhaps it was your energy, present but unreachable, courteous but distant. Whatever it was, they sensed it, felt the transformation. And in that instant, they understood you weren't theirs anymore, weren't anyone's. You were yours, completely, entirely, undeniably yours. The chapter about you doesn't just say unstoppable. It includes something additional, something they only add in the rarest circumstances. It says devastatingly effective, because you're not just defending yourself anymore. You're constructing something, an empire of autonomy, a kingdom of inner tranquility, a fortress of boundaries so masterfully built that even the most skilled manipulator evaluates it and concludes, not worth attempting. You're not just surviving their games, you're winning an entirely different game they don't even know exists. While they're still fixated on control and manipulation and power over others, you've progressed to something infinitely more valuable, power over yourself. And that kind of power, that's the kind that transforms everything. They'll share stories about you in their private exchanges, in their therapy sessions, in their late-night contemplations. Your name will surface, not with anger anymore, not with bitterness, but with something more layered, a blend of regret and bewilderment and grudging respect. They'll wonder how someone they thought they knew intimately became someone they can't decipher. They'll review memories searching for the precise moment you changed, where you became this person they cannot touch. But they'll never locate it because there wasn't one moment. There were thousands of microscopic decisions to prioritize yourself, thousands of small acts of self-preservation, thousands of quiet instances where you reconstructed your foundation one piece at a time while they weren't paying attention. Here's the part that will reverberate in their consciousness forever. You didn't require revenge. That's what makes you genuinely formidable. People who pursue revenge remain tethered, still connected to those who wounded them, still surrendering their power. But you simply departed. Not with spectacle, not with a closing statement, not with a dramatic departure. You just faded from their radar, stopped appearing emotionally, stopped allocating energy, stopped caring about their version of events. And that indifference, that absolute and total indifference, is more crushing than any revenge could ever be, because it means they're not even worth your anger anymore, not worth your hatred, not worth anything. They're just static in a life that's progressed without them. The manual designates you devastatingly effective because you've mastered something most never learn. You've learned how to exist in the world without belonging to it. You're present but not attached, engaged but not dependent, connected but not consumed. You discovered the equilibrium between remaining soft enough to experience life fully and staying strong enough that life cannot shatter you. You're like water now, conforming to any vessel but never losing your essence, flowing around barriers instead of colliding with them, powerful in your gentleness and gentle in your power. And that fusion, that's what they cannot process, what renders their strategies obsolete. They assumed breaking you would be simple. They possessed all the instruments, all the methods, all the expertise. They'd succeeded before with others, understood the patterns, knew the pressure points, knew precisely where to apply force to make someone collapse. And they used everything on you, every manipulation, every deception, every betrayal, every abandonment, every form of psychological warfare they could mobilize. And you absorbed it all, not passively, not as a casualty, but as an apprentice. You studied their methods while they deployed them, learned their language while they spoke it, understood their game while they played it. And then when they believed they'd triumphed, you demonstrated what you'd learned by simply exiting the entire battlefield. Now they're confronted with a problem they cannot solve. They cannot break someone who's already been broken and reconstructed themselves stronger. They cannot manipulate someone who's already witnessed every trick available. They cannot control someone who's discovered something superior to their approval. And they cannot understand someone who's operating on a level of awareness they haven't achieved yet. So they do the only thing they can. They add you to the unstoppable chapter, mark your file as devastatingly effective, and move on to simpler targets, because attempting to crack you isn't just futile anymore. It's draining, demoralizing, a waste of their resources. And deep down, in a place they'll never acknowledge aloud, they're grateful you're no longer their problem.